Joining us now, Jennifer Palmieri, who was communications director in the Obama White House and for the Hillary Clinton 2016 campaign. She's also co-host of MSNBC's How to Win 2024 podcast. And Tim Miller, former communications director for Jeb Bush's 2016 campaign, writer at large for The Bulwark. Both are MSNBC political analysts. So, Tim, when you see that poll number, does it make you think, yeah, maybe a Trump conviction could sway the outcome of the election?
Well, anything could sway the outcome of the election, Chris.
I think that could happen right now.
Yeah,
okay,
right.
Maybe I should have phrased that differently. Is likely to.
I think it's probably not likely. I think, look, I don't want to be nihilistic about this. I think that there are a group of people that having a convicted felon on the ballot is going to matter to. They tell us that in the polls. We see that. How big is that group? Probably not that big, but it's probably going to be a pretty close election. To me, the more interesting thing is you look at that number. I'm just doing some quick math in my head, which is always dangerous. But about a quarter of the folks didn't have an opinion on it at all, right? And you said 7%, had decided now, had learned that they feel like he committed these crimes. That's interesting because when you look at the group that's going to really matter in this election, it's the people that are kind of disengaged from this and aren't watching this all day to day. That is different from in the past. Like a traditional swing voter in the past was kind of a moderate, middle-of-the-road person that was engaged, but just sometimes votes Democrat, sometimes votes Republican. This time, the key electorate is going to be people that aren't that engaged in politics at all. And so, some of them are learning new things right now about this trial. And so I think it's a little bit early to judge, what impact it might have on people that aren't following this minute by minute like we are.
Is that, Jennifer, the basis for this new piece you wrote for MSNBC's How to Win 2024 newsletter? Basically that whatever the polls say, Democrats shouldn't freak out about them yet.
You should never forget about one poll in particular. But what I said about this one, and there's been a lot of heartbeat about the New York Times poll, but one thing, in particular, one thing that was odd was that 20% of the people they considered to be likely voters had not voted in the last presidential election. That's a really high number to assume that it's going to be new to the electorate, probably an unprecedented number. So I don't think it's likely to be that. But one thing that I saw that was surprising to me was that 74% of the people said that they were satisfied with how their life was going. That's kind of a right track, wrong track number, right? And that's like a question, and that's a really high number. It doesn't suggest that people are necessarily looking for a change, but they might need to know more about what Biden has done that contributed to making their life better, but also just to be credible to lay down the groundwork that he can get more done in the second term. And then in terms of how the trial could affect swing voters, I'm looking at the Republican primary where last night in Maryland, Nikki Haley continued to get about 20% of the vote. That suggests to me those voters are unhappy. Those are Republicans who are unhappy with Trump. They're likely to be. I would suspect that those voters would probably be unhappy with the conviction of Trump as well. Some measure, not all of them, but some of those voters are going to be open to voting for Biden too. So in addition to getting his 2020 coalition back, there are other voters that might be open to him that didn't vote for him in 20 and may have even voted for Trump.
Tim, the zombie vote, her campaign is dead, but there are still supporters out there. Nikki Haley, that's a pretty significant number when you're not running, right? What was it exactly? I think 20% in Maryland's primary, nearly 18% in Nebraska. But is it clear where that vote goes?
It's not, but I think the Maryland one is particularly interesting because, we're doing a little bit of a political science experiment here with the zombie vote. And in some of these states, it's people that were really Biden voters that are either my people, former Republicans, or independents that are crossing over because they dislike Trump so much to turn out. We've seen that in a lot of states. But that wasn't happening in Maryland. Maryland had a very competitive Senate primary on the Democratic side. So if you are, if somebody that is a Joe Biden voter that's now part of the Democratic coalition, even if you're a former Republican, you probably wanted to have your voice heard in that race in your home state, and it's a closed primary. And so I think that we are really looking at a pretty clean group of about 1 in 5 Maryland Republicans that are upset with Donald Trump. And I think that some of those people aren't going to vote. Some of them will go home to Trump. Some of them are going to vote for Joe Biden. And I think it's a core audience that Joe Biden's going to, be trying to reach very aggressively going ahead to November.
Finally, Jennifer, I have to ask you about the big news today. Biden and Trump have agreed June 27th, Atlanta. They're going to debate. Right now, the devil's in the details, right? Always. They still apparently are having some conversations about things like moderators, RFK Jr. Tell me what it's like to be in the middle of those kinds of conversations and where you think Joe Biden needs to sort of hold the line.
It's super scary to be in those conversations because you're never sure what, the choice that you think is going to work out for you in the end. You're not really sure if that was the, what you're really setting your candidate up to be in. And I have to say, the Commission on Presidential Debates, very well-meaning group, but when we dealt with them in 2016, the Hillary campaign, they were woefully unprepared to deal with the sort of disruption candidate of Trump. So I think the Biden team was right to go on their own. I think you want a clean stage of just Trump and Biden. But if you got to deal with RFK, you got to deal with RFK. And I think, Biden will be prepared to do it. I think what's really smart, Chris, is having it as early as June because, first of all, people start voting in September. So we got to sort of advance everything 2 months. But also, you really want to define the race in June. I think we were very successful in the 2012 campaign with Obama and doing that, what the stakes were, defining our opponent. Nice Mitt Romney, seems sort of quaint now, and what Obama had accomplished. You kind of want that set by June. So I think it's really smart to get this going soon.
I'm going to get in trouble, Tim Miller, but I'm going to ask you anyway, because our friend Matt Dowd said on the last hour he thinks this could be the most watched presidential debate ever, especially given that Trump has not debated at all through the primary. Do you agree with him?
It's going to be very highly watched, and I agree with Jen. I'm happy the Biden campaign is doing it this way. He absolutely had to debate Donald Trump, and I think that this timing is really smart, and I think we're all going to be tuning in.
We will indeed. Tim Miller, Jennifer Palmieri, thank you both.